And my background as an architect, I think, is well suited for executive leadership. As architects, by nature of training, we are visionaries, we're planners, creative problem solvers, consensus builders, and I think these are the types of skills and abilities that really go well and marry themselves well to executive leadership in government. The number one challenge is jobs, jobs, jobs in the economy right now. We have the 5th highest unemployment rate in the nation. The real number of unemployment is somewhere around 20%. That's called U6 unemployment. That counts all the people that have fallen off the doles of unemployment, people that have given up hope, stopped looking for work, are no longer in the workforce, and those people that are underemployed. So that's quite a large number for our state. It's not very sustainable long term. So we need to take as many measures as we can to get jobs going as fast as possible. We also have to work on education in North Carolina. We're ranked somewhere between 27th and 41st in the nation in K-12 education, depending on which polls you look at, which rating system you look at. So that's not good enough either for our state, and I believe that we need to take the measures we need to take to get education on the right track. So these are the things that are roles and responsibilities of the Lieutenant Governor and things that we talk about on the campaign trail. Well, on the economy side, we've spent the last 3 months of our campaign. We've been on the road for 20 months. We've been to all 100 counties. We've been to most of them many times. And we've been out meeting the people of North Carolina and just talking to them about what their needs are and how do we jumpstart the economy? How do we get jobs going again? Number one is the tax burden. North Carolina is 44th in the nation in business tax climate. So we have the highest corporate income tax rate in the Southeast and one of the highest in the nation. We have the highest personal income tax in the Southeast and one of the highest in the nation. We have the highest gas tax in the Southeast, one of the highest in the nation. If you combine Virginia and South Carolina's gas tax, ours is still higher than both of those combined. So we need to create a strong level playing field for all businesses, small businesses across North Carolina, so that we can allow them to invest in their companies, we can allow them to innovate, and we can allow them to grow again. So taxation is a big piece of that, and regulatory burden is a big piece of that as well. Across the board, for the last few months, all of the companies that we have met with have said we have to reduce the regulatory burden on small businesses. And so there's some things in the regulatory codes that are just unsustainable for these small businesses, and it's really tough to open a new business in North Carolina. So we need to do those kind of things. We need to open up some funding mechanisms for real small, small businesses to be able to open up and get the economy going again. On the education side, that's a little bit different. On the education side, I believe we need to break the state government-controlled monopoly on education and introduce choice, putting the control of education back in the hands of the parents, back in the hands of the teachers and the local school administrators, and getting it out of the hands of the bureaucracy, whether that's in Raleigh or Washington, D.C., putting the money where the students are and where they need to learn. So when you do that, you get increased competition. Competition leads to innovation, and innovation and competition spur on each other. And I believe that rising tide of innovation will change the face of education in our state. Tuition across the board and at higher ed across the country is out of control, and a lot of that does come from trying to meet every single need of every single student that's coming to your university. And I think we have to tame some of that down in the middle of a recession. When I went to college, I won't tell you how many years ago it was a while ago, but my tuition was $610 a semester for tuition. So I had a job, I worked almost full time, and I worked my way through school, and I paid off my college as I went. And now you can't do that as a student anymore if you have to take on loans. I have a son that's at Chapel Hill, a sophomore at Chapel Hill. He has to take on loans for a portion of his education. He works really hard to pay it off, but there's really no way he can work enough to pay down a loan. And so oftentimes now our students are graduating with $20,000, $40,000, $60,000, $80,000 worth of debt when they come out of school after 4 years, and there's no job there waiting for them. So this is very problematic. These kind of debts may burden our young people for their entire lives if we don't rein in spending. I think there is plenty of waste at most universities. I think you can look at the tenure system for professors. There's hundreds of professors across our state that are tenured that don't even teach anymore, and they're some of our best professors perhaps. We need to get them back in the classroom. They need to be teaching again. We can cut costs at the administrative side of education. We can also say that we don't need to meet every single need of every single student in the country. We can cut back on some of the curriculum options that are out there during times of recession, and increase those curriculum options again when money is flowing, revenues flowing into government. But just like business does, in times of recession, you have to downsize and you have to make cuts. And that happens whether it's education or Department of Transportation or whatever you're talking about. In our last General Assembly, they had to cut $3.5 billion out of the budget. And when you have to cut $3.5 billion out of a $20 billion budget, there's going to be cuts across the board. So I think education, infrastructure, those are two of the main functions of government. We need to make sure we're funding them appropriately. We need to make sure that teachers and professors are getting paid appropriately. But we also know that when revenue decreases, we have to take the appropriate steps to make sure that our fiscal house is in order. You know, there are many forms of curriculum that are being taught at our universities, many classes that are being taught that aren't preparing our students for jobs right now. We need to make sure that we're focusing on the jobs that exist out there in our communities right now and across the world, you know, preparing our students for our global economy. And I'm not going to name any names of what some of those classes may be, but you can go down the list here at your university and you'll know what I'm talking about. The role of the government is to create the foundation to spur job growth. And so we need to make sure that those jobs are available when they get there by growing the economy. And I don't believe that government expenditure is the way to grow the economy. I believe that getting the burden off of our businesses, whether they're small businesses or corporations who hire all of the people in our country, get the burden off the backs of those companies and allow them to grow. And when you do that, the economy grows. And as the economy grows, revenue goes back into the government as well. And then you can fund the programs within government that need to be funded. I mean, I wouldn't really separate college students from anybody else. I think we have an economic crisis in our country right now. We have a fiscal crisis within government. We have been spending far more money than we've been bringing in. Up till this point in the year, right now, if you stopped the calendar today, every single dollar that has been raised for government revenues, every tax dollar that's come into the federal government has been spent on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and interest on the debt. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and interest on the debt. These are unfunded liabilities in our country that your generation is going to be picking up the burden on unless we do something about this really pretty much immediately. So every other dollar that we use to pay for infrastructure and education and military and everything else that we have to spend money on in our government is being borrowed right now. 42 cents on every single dollar is being borrowed. So we don't have an endless credit card in America. We can't keep spending on credit because it's your generation that's going to be picking up the bill. So I think that we have to be fiscally responsible. We have to be economically responsible. We have to have a solid economic plan for how we're going to get out of the debt that we have, how we're going to break the deficit challenges that we have, but most importantly, how we're going to deal with the unfunded liabilities that we have. Federal government's one thing. We also have them at the state government. We have $33 billion worth of unfunded liabilities. So we've made promises to future generations that there's no money in the bank to pay for. So we have to fulfill those promises, but we have to figure out how we fiscally responsibly meet those needs. And so I think that if I'm coming out of college right now and I'm looking to my future and I have $40,000, $80,000 worth of debt, I'm going to want to make sure that there's a job out there. And I think we need to elect the leaders who are going to do the right things to make sure we get the economy going again. Any campaign that has a slogan, a good slogan, is kind of money for a campaign. You know, one of the things that you hear from people every day, you just walk down the street and meet somebody and you tell them who you are, they go, "Run, Forrest, run." They know the slogan. You know, we like to have fun as well. Our campaign is a fun campaign. Like I said, we've been doing this for 20 months. Campaigning is a grueling experience. You're on the road all day, every day. So we add a little levity to the process. You know, I say to people when I get elected, you can call me Lieutenant Dan. And our bus is called Bubba One. You know, so we just have fun with it. And people get behind that and it resonates and they have fun too. And I think when you have your volunteers laughing and having a good time in what is otherwise a very serious business, then you get people that kind of gel with your campaign a little more quickly. Well, everybody really pays a whole lot of attention to the presidential race and the gubernatorial race. They don't pay a lot of attention to what we call the down ballot races or the council of state races. So we've spent a couple years going around talking to the people about our race and kind of making our own news, if you will, and getting around geographically around the state to bring awareness, name recognition to our race. And really, it's Lieutenant Governor Secretary of State, Attorney General, these races are just kind of off the radar for most people. In the last couple of weeks, they really start paying attention to those races, trying to learn who is who. But it's a name recognition challenge is what it is. Just people just don't pay that much attention. So if you look at the polls now, you'd say, well, there's this big disparity. But what you'll see on Election Day is you'll see coattails from the governor's race. You'll see people that go in and they vote for president, and then they go down and vote straight ticket Republican or straight ticket Democrat when they move beyond president. And that straight ticket vote that's going to be one going in to vote for Pat McCrory, the rest of the straight ticket is going to really help those down ballot races a lot. So you will see, I believe, a larger gap than what you see in the polls right now come Election Day. And the other side of that is we have very strong grassroots, and you really can't poll grassroots. We were going into the first primary, we were down in the polls by 8 points. And we won by 8 points. It was a 16-point swing, and everybody say, what do you attribute that victory to? And it's grassroots, because you can't poll it. Going into the second primary, it was a neck-and-neck race. We won 98 out of 100 counties. Huge victory. And people say, what do you attribute to? It's grassroots. You just can't poll it. So our grassroots is very strong. Coattails are strong. I think we'll do well on Tuesday. Well, I think you have to look at the long-term longevity of Obamacare. It's already costing our taxpayers significantly more in their health care costs right now before everything in Obamacare has been implemented. So from a national standpoint, this is really no role or responsibility of the federal government to do this. The states have the rights to take care of everything that's not in the Constitution by the 10th Amendment, and we need to make sure that we protect those rights. But we also need to make sure that we have the most reasonable and affordable health care that we can possibly have. Obamacare does not do that. It's not affordable long term, and the costs every year that the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, takes a look at Obamacare, the cost doubles. And so it's getting more and more expensive, and it hasn't even been implemented yet. So I'm in favor of the states taking care of their own health care. Now, Obamacare, what it has done is it has sparked real conversation. It's made health care rise to the top of conversation. And so people are really paying close attention now. So our last General Assembly did take care of things like tort reform and medical malpractice reform, things that really should have been in Obamacare as well. These are things that drive up the cost of health care. We also need to break down the barriers across state lines for insurance. Just like you can go out and buy car insurance across state lines, that increases competition, and you see every year car insurance rates go down. That's because of competition allows that to happen. We need to break down the barriers of insurance companies and break down the walls across states so that that competition can come in and drive the cost down. But it's a multi-tiered process, and I think state by state should be able to handle their health care. Wow, that's really a great question. I'm not really sure. I think that there are a lot of inefficiencies within FEMA. I think FEMA has taken the hit for a lot of things over time about not being prepared for disasters effectively. I think it's probably both. We are blessed to have a national federal government that comes in, that can swoop in and help out not just our states, but internationally as well. Anytime there's a major disaster, our country swoops in, and we're always the first ones on the scene to help out. And so I think it's a combination, but I think the federal government and the state government need to work really well together when those things happen. When we saw the Hurricane Katrina hit in Louisiana, or we saw the oil spill in the Gulf, it seemed like the federal government and the state government in Louisiana weren't working very well together, and they were really competing with one another and getting in each other's way and pointing blame at one another. So I think you need to have a more seamless process. But I think we need to make sure that we continue to fund FEMA appropriately, because disasters do happen, and we need to be able to react at the drop of a hat.